John, do you know what happens when you squeeze a bird tightly enough?
You choke the chicken? I'm not sure. What happens, Jason?
That's better than what I was thinking of. It goes pop. And I think that's going to happen to Twitter. Elon Musk has announced he is terminating the deal. Pray he doesn't alter it any further. But Agrog, whatever his name is, Parag Agrawal, earlier this morning announced that he's ready to go to war with Elon Musk to force him to buy Twitter. Pretty amazing considering how much they didn't want him to buy it just a little while ago. What do you make of all this, John?
It's been one heck of a week in the news. I mean, the Twitter story is breaking literally minutes before we went live with this show, right? So this just hit the news like less than an hour ago.
Yeah.
Shinzo,
this is a terrible
Shinzo
story.
Abe. Yeah. And I was a big fan of his, and we've been talking about Japan and what happened to Japan and how come nobody's talking about Japan anymore. And he had to step down from being prime minister, I believe, because he had ulcerative colitis. And ulcerative colitis is a real debilitating disease. And he stepped down as a result of that. But when I saw the footage of him being assassinated, and I saw one of the shots, one of the photographs of the shooter, the first thing I said is, "What the hell kind of gun is that?"
Homemade.
That looks like it's a homemade gun. And that was the first thing I said is, "What the hell? What is that?" It was like
you can't really get a gun
thing.
in Japan.
Apparently, I guess if you shoot skeet or trap or something like that, you can get shotguns, Purdy's and Berettas and stuff like that, which are expensive. But this guy made a gun. And when I saw the photo of it, I was like, what the hell is that? And that's what he shot the guy with. And sure enough, it came out in the news. It was a homemade gun. So this is a very sad story. Tragic.
Yeah. But this was crazy because people have been telling me, and I just saw here, that China's internet is expressing glee at Shinzo Abe's assassination. I mean, they call it a patriotic education. Online vitriol.
China and Japan are, the Hatfields and McCoys of Asia, right? So
well, Shinzo Abe was a champion of Taiwan independence and was talking with Trump about possibly even putting U.S. nuclear missiles in Japan. So I wonder, that guy who shot him was apparently a Japanese former Navy guy.
Navy, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't seen too many close-up pictures of the gun, but, I mean, for me, the point is, crazy people are going to find a way to kill, and if you start making it illegal for law-abiding citizens to have guns, if this was Texas, somebody would have noticed this and maybe popped this dude in the head before he could have gotten to Shinzo Abe. Well, what's going on here? Is it electrically firing projectiles? We really don't know very much about this.
Again, it's homemade, so you have no idea what the heck the guy did, but he shot him in the back with a shotgun. Wow. So it was firing shotgun projectiles.
Wow.
Right, and it appears to be like a double barrel contraption. So I don't know if he was shot at him twice, but he was shot in the back with shotgun rounds, and it ended up killing him. So
it's very bad.
Tragic. I mean, just horrible. And that's just the tip of the iceberg this week. We had, a week ago, we had our Friday show on the 1st of July, going into the 4th of July weekend, and we didn't talk too much about the 4th of July and what it means and all that. And then on the 4th of July, we had a tragic shooting, right? So we had a shooting in, I guess it was in Illinois, right? Highland Park, Illinois. Is that the name?
Robert Krim.
Highland Park. Cremo. And we're going to take a look at I have some stuff about that in my deck, so we're going to take a look at that tonight in the show, and how they were able to zero in on this guy so quickly. So we're going to take a look at that when we get to the deck, and we're going to take a look at it. Again, this week has been an incredible news story, just one right after the other. Another story, and then another story, then another story, and then what's happening in the Netherlands is remarkable. And so the farmers in the Netherlands have basically shut everything down. They've shut down the airports. They've surrounded the police stations. They're not delivering food, and the supermarkets are empty. And it's really wild what's happening over there. So we're going to take a look at that in the show. So yeah, we've got so much to cover. This might need to be like a 4 or 5 hour show. So
I don't know if we have time.
I want everybody to settle in. Yes, settle in, get comfortable. We've got a tremendous amount to cover. And of course, the Twitter deal, what's going on with the Twitter deal. And then there was this story about Truth Social with
well, wait, let's just talk about the Twitter thing first, because I mean, this is huge. I've been waiting for Elon Musk to turn Twitter into a husk. Oh, wait, that's the wrong story. And we are, of course, hearing...
Well, we were laughing last week.
Yeah.
You and I were laughing last week. We were hysterically laughing when Twitter announced that they had accepted his $44 billion offer. And we were like, no, it was $44 billion if you only had 5% of your traffic was nonsense. It was $44 billion. Yeah. That, there was more to the story. And they were like, oh yeah, we've accepted his offer for $44 billion. And he kept pressing and pressing and pressing to see, well, what do the real numbers look like? And it appears that once he got a chance to see what was actually happening and check the books, it's not what it appears to be at the surface. That would be my takeaway. What's your take?
There's already fur flying on Twitter. The thing works like crap. I don't know who this Brett Taylor is, but he's talking about the Delaware Court of Chancery. He says the Twitter board, this is ridiculous. I mean, when someone's trying to force you to buy something, that is a huge red flag. The Twitter board is just committed to closing.
Hover over Brett's name.
Salesforce.
Salesforce.
The chairman of the board of Twitter.
There you go.
So this guy's going to hopefully go to jail too. The Twitter board is committed to closing the transaction on the price and terms agreed upon with Mr. Musk, and plans to pursue legal action to enforce the merger agreement. We are confident we will prevail in Delaware Court of Chancery. See this little word here, terms. The terms agreed upon, what I believe Mr. Musk is going to be saying based on things he said as recently as yesterday at that Allen conference in wherever it is. He said that they've materially misrepresented facts, and that is kind of fraud. So they might be in for a surprise.
Forcing somebody to buy something is going to be interesting.
Not so doable.
You have to purchase this because you said you were interested in purchasing it. Now you have to purchase it.
Yeah. We also had Parag Agrawal earlier today saying he was ready to go to war to complete the sale. What is going on there? These are not the type. Usually when somebody's talking about giving you $44 billion for something, you've taken out for steaks and hanging out on the yacht, talking about it, and everybody's happy. You're not going to war and taking him to court. I think what's going to happen, John, is you're going to see a lot of Twitter executives going to jail, because I don't think that Elon Musk did this on a lark. I think he's the kind of guy who doesn't normally ask too many questions that he doesn't already know the answer to. And there is one particular asshole in Connecticut who I hope is watching. And if he's not, I hope the smelly feet lunatic in the RV sends this to him, because I hope that scumbag goes to jail too. And I have a feeling there's a lot more feathers gonna fly before this shitbird takes its final croak. And I am so delighted that Elon Musk has done this. I have known from the beginning that his intention was to destroy it, and I love it.
Well, I think he's exposed it. He's
Right.
exposed the nonsense. He's exposed the house of cards. And that when forced to disclose what was actually happening behind the scenes, that's when the deal fell apart. And
Right.
you can't blame him for that. That, he was ready to go. We had talked about all of the investors he had lined up. So again, you have to ask, one of the things that I'm kind of fascinated by is how people don't want to know both sides of the story. How is it that people don't want to know both sides of the story?
I
Right?
don't
Like
know.
with MBS, right? Everybody's, oh, he's a ruthless butcher, right? With Khashoggi, Jamal Khashoggi, right? Oh, he was chopped up to bit. Nobody wants to ever know the other side of the story. And so I look at this board of directors at Twitter, and I'm fascinated by, why are they so eager to sell at $44 billion that they are like ready to
But
go to
first they
war?
hated it.
They're ready to sue him and go to war. That's how eager they are to sell. That's not a good sign. That's not a good look. When you're that eager to sell that I'm going to sue you to buy me, and I'm going to go to war with you to buy me. As you said, that's not a great way to influence people and make new friends. That's not exactly the method that Dale Carnegie was espousing. Yeah, he wasn't espousing the "I'm going to sue you and go to war with you" method. Was not part of the program.
But here's the other weird part in the social media world, and you were talking about this. I didn't mean to cut you off, but now we've got reports that Trump's attorney removed him and Trump Jr. and Kash Patel from the board of directors of the social media company that's going to merge with Truth Social and do this whole SPAC, whatever the hell they were doing. And then Truth Social comes out and says, no, he's not doing that. What do you think about this?
Well, again, just the fact that Stephen Biss is the attorney for Truth Social is sort of like having, Ronald McDonald, the clown.
Truth Social. He's the attorney for Devin Nunes. He's on Truth Social.
I think he's I think we're going to have to look into this when we go patron only. I think he's the chief legal officer on Truth Social.
Oh my God.
I could be wrong. Yeah, we'll look into it when we go patron only, because I want to show people a couple slides here before we have to go to our patron only hour. So we'll get deep into this. But again, the notion is there were two stories that came out in the last 48 or 72 hours that said, one, that Donald Trump was being taken off of the list of board of directors, and then Truth Social refuted it. And so you and I have been looking at the story on Forbes. We've been looking at the story, and we're like, well, what's going on? And if it is Stephen Biss who's pulling the strings and taking people on and off the board, what is he doing?
No. Biss is definitely not representing Trump. I as far as I know, Biss is not an attorney for Truth Social. We'll look into that and get to the bottom of it. Yeah,
right, we'll
he's definitely represented Devin Nunes and his family in a variety of things. But it seems like Donald Trump's attorney took him.
Not Donald Trump, but Truth Social. I think he's connected to Truth Social more than just as a user. I think he represents Truth Social. We're going to have to dig into it.
But the lawyer that took Trump and the other guys off was not Stephen Biss and not an attorney for Truth Social. That attorney was representing Donald Trump. So we'll get into this. We'll get into this on the Patreon show. We'll get into the details here, but let me not get ahead of myself here. Take us through the slides, if you would, please.
All right. So just a couple things. Again, this was a tremendous week for news stories. Very quickly, last week, we looked at the WHO's map on the left of China. This week, 7 days later, there's 700 more people dead in China.
Huh.
Right. So the one on the left is last week. The one on the right is this week. And not only that,
is it exactly got about another 701.
No.
699.
Yeah. But you also have another 200,000 cases. 270,000 cases. So for everybody keeps saying China's lying, well, we're getting updated data from China. We're getting 200,000 cases a week, 700 deaths. Now it's still less than Indiana, so I don't want anybody to panic. There's less dead in China than Indiana, so don't panic. All right, so let's go to the next slide. One of the things that you and I documented on the show was how influenza disappeared from so many countries around the world, and that it disappeared in like a 3-week window. Week 11 of 2020 through week 14, you and I documented how influenza just disappeared without trying. In other words, we were trying to prevent coronavirus, right, and accidentally eradicated the deadliest virus on earth, the one that kills the most people. Just went away. And yet there are epidemiologists and virologists and pathologists that spend their entire lives working on influenza and how to build vaccines for it, how to prevent it, how to treat it. And by accident, without trying, it disappeared from all these countries in a 3-week time frame.
Seems absurd, no?
Well, my friend in Ireland, Ivor Cummins, said, "You can't. This is impossible to imagine this happening without subterfuge."
Right. Of course.
And so that was the term, and I was like, I love that. I love that term, subterfuge. And so it was so appropriate. And when you look at this graphic and you see how many countries this phenomenon happened in, it's somewhat stunning. I mean, it's just country after country.
And at
after
the same
country.
time, I mean, this is like
same 3
accidentally baking a souffle and you don't have any of the ingredients. It's just, it can't.
Right. It's like, it would be like if your 4-year-old went into the fridge, put a bunch of stuff in a bowl, and out came a chocolate souffle. Exactly. Right. That's exactly right. It's like, this is absurd. Yeah. And the fact that epidemiologists won't address it, right, is just mind-boggling to me. All right. So again, that's a flag that we planted, right, on a moon somewhere. And there's no other flags on that moon. It's like nobody wants to visit the moon. And we put the flag there. It's like it's there. And everybody's afraid to go to the moon. All right. So this was just a fun T-shirt that kind of sums up a lot of the sentiment that, again, the way I think about things is like, I don't understand the masking aspect for people who are already inoculated.
Yeah.
Right. And right now there's a lot of this going on where they want people to re-mask up, put your masks back on. And I'm dumbfounded by this. I'm like, but aren't all of you people vaccinated? Didn't you all get boosted and vaccinated? So what is the mask for? I thought the vaccine was to protect you from the disease. So I saw this T-shirt that I thought was fun that says, "I'm vaccinated, but still wearing my mask because I got trust issues and y'all nasty." And I thought, well, that kind of sums it up for a lot of people. But it doesn't make any sense. And that's the part that gets me scratching my head. Yeah. So this was 1 year ago today. So one year ago today, the president of Haiti was assassinated. And some people say it's because he didn't buy enough bulletproof vests. I have to agree, right? So,
well, maybe
more bulletproof vests, and maybe he'd still be here. You know, who told him to sleep in the nude? Probably not a good idea. So he was gunned down by a team that came in and screamed DEA, DEA, and shot everybody dead. That was 1 year ago today.
I guess they need, I mean, see, look, obviously it's terrible when anybody gets assassinated, but at the risk of, Haiti is a little bit less organized and sophisticated than Japan. And I'm not saying that anybody should be assassinated, but it's somewhat less surprising when something like that happens in a place like Haiti. I mean, just simply looking at the crime statistics, Japan, I think, is the 9th safest country in the world. It's virtually impossible to get a gun in Japan, and gun crimes in Japan are super rare. And I think when they happen, they're generally like Yakuza fighting among themselves. And it's like the concept of somebody randomly walking up to somebody in Japan and shooting them, particularly the former prime minister, while he's campaigning to run again. It's like a JFK moment for Japan.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a stunning development. And this president, I don't know if Charles Ortel was studying this new administration in Haiti at all because of the work he had been doing with the Clinton Foundation in Haiti. But this guy actually seemed like a legitimate guy. He was trying to clean up the government, and they killed him a year ago. So that was 1 year ago today. The president of Haiti was assassinated in his bedroom at night. And then, of course, on 4th of July, we had this shooting in Highland Park. And the thing about the shooting in Highland Park that I found somewhat fascinating and troubling at the same time is not the outfit or the hairdo on Robert Crimo. It's what we see on the next page on the deck. And so what I didn't understand was how are they able to identify him as the suspect so quickly? Right. And I saw footage of the FBI showing up at the residence. So before they took him into custody, they went to his house. And it was a scene like what we've looked at when we saw Roger Stone and, where the FBI, they get the guns drawn, they go around the house, they surround the house, and they were looking for the guy. So this is before he's taken into custody. How did they know it was him?
It's an excellent question. It strikes me, I long for the days when merely seeing someone dressed like this would itself be sufficiently suspicious that you might notice the person, but no longer.
No, that's...
it's also like walking around with a mask on. That used to be, 3 years ago, if you saw somebody out on the streets of New York City wearing a mask, you'd call the cops and say, hey, there's somebody about to do a burglary. Now, you get yelled at if you're not wearing a mask.
Yeah. Well, the thing about this is that all the footage that we saw of him was after the fact.
Do we have to call him her now? Because he's, we're going to get...
No, he's dead. He's dead, so we...
Dead naming? Anything you call him is no good.
He's the deceased. But when you look at the... Again,
is he dead? I thought they arrested him.
Right, well, but how did they know this was the guy they were going after? How did they figure this out so quick? Supposedly they recovered the weapon. Were they able to run the numbers on the weapon and get it back that quickly? Because I've heard it takes time to get that back. So did they just say, well, who's the craziest kid in the neighborhood that's the most likely to do this, and let's go to his house? In other words, how did they identify him as the shooter if he was on the roof of a building? We don't see any footage of him shooting.
Well, how did they even have time to make this poster? Like, didn't they arrest him right after the thing?
Yeah. So that's the point. They made the poster.
Inefficient.
The FBI shows up at his house and they arrested him all in the same day. And how did they zero in on him that quickly? How did they know this was the guy they were looking for, that the FBI showed up at his house?
Who took this video?
That
this
looks
is
like a security,
video, right?
That's
but
a security.
It's got a play button, like it's a TikTok video or something, and it's vertical format. There's a lot of weird stuff about this. There always is so much weird stuff about all of these shootings. And also, of course, the father bought him the gun and he threatened to kill everybody, but everybody thought, haha, that's just a funny joke with the kid with the tattoos all over his face and neck.
The issue that I have is he's innocent until proven guilty, right?
Didn't people see him doing it?
Right. And he looks the part. He looks like, this, how would this not be the guy, right?
How did he get on the roof of the building without anybody noticing? Don't they have any security at the parade?
Well, that's the thing. We haven't seen any footage of him on his way to shoot or shooting where we see, oh yeah, there he is. That's him. Yeah, well, he's got the neck tattoo. I
Right.
see him up on
Every
the roof.
place has traffic cameras and ring cameras and security cameras on private businesses.
So how did we figure out this was the guy? Was this just like we got a list of lunatics in Highland Park that were the guys we keep our eyes on, and he was on the list? And
no, I think they got a list of lunatics who they always seem to know. But John, we're going to have to continue this conversation in less than 4 minutes on the sponsor exclusive segment. People can join us on subscribestar.com/I am John Cullen, patreon.com/I am John Cullen. What's the matter? And subscribestar.com and patreon.com.
They're not going to get to see the next slide. And the next slide was really one of the most important in the deck.
This one?
This was Sam Brenton. Sam, we talked about Sam last week, the deputy.
We're going to look at it
secretary
in 3 minutes.
Spent fuel
on Subscribestar and Patreon.
Yeah, one of my favorite members of the